In the heart of the 1960s, a revolutionary book emerged. Its title, Pedagogy of the Oppressed, ignited a firestorm of debate. Paulo Freire, a Brazilian educator, dared to challenge the very foundation of traditional education. He saw it as a tool of oppression, not liberation. Freire's work was more than just theory. It was a call to action. He believed in the power of education to transform lives. His vision was rooted in dialogue, critical thinking, and social justice. Freire's message resonated deeply with marginalized communities worldwide. His work became a beacon of hope for those yearning for a more equitable world. Pedagogy of the Oppressed transcended cultural and geographical boundaries. It became a cornerstone of critical pedagogy, inspiring generations of educators and activists. Freire's ideas challenged the status quo. He urged a shift from passive learning to active engagement. Education, he argued, should empower individuals to question, to analyze, and to challenge injustice. Pedagogy of the Oppressed remains a powerful testament to the transformative potential of education. Published in 1968, its message continues to resonate in the 21st century. The book's enduring relevance speaks volumes about the persistent nature of social injustice. Freire's work serves as a reminder that the fight for equality is far from over. Freire's ideas remain as relevant today as they were decades ago. His critique of the banking model of education, where knowledge is treated as a commodity to be deposited into passive students, still holds true. We see this model reflected in standardized testing, rigid curricula, and a focus on rote learning over critical thinking. Freire's alternative problem-posing education offers a powerful antidote. This approach encourages students to become active participants in their learning. It challenges them to identify problems, analyze their root causes, and work together to find solutions. This focus on critical thinking, collaboration, and social action is essential for navigating the complexities of the 21st century. Freire's emphasis on dialogue as a tool for liberation remains crucial. In an increasingly polarized world, the ability to engage in respectful and meaningful conversations across differences is more important than ever. Dialogue allows us to challenge our assumptions, broaden our perspectives, and find common ground. It is through dialogue that we can begin to bridge divides and build a more just and equitable society. Freire's work is not just about education, it's about humanization. It's about recognizing the inherent dignity and worth of every individual, regardless of their background or social standing. It's about creating a world where everyone has the opportunity to reach their full potential. Pedagogy of the Oppressed is a call to action for all of us to become agents of change. In the hallowed halls of traditional education, a subtle form of oppression often unfolds. Paulo Freire termed it the banking concept of education. Imagine a sterile bank vault, its cold steel representing the rigid structures of this system. Knowledge, like precious currency, is carefully guarded and controlled. The teacher, acting as the bank teller, makes deposits into the waiting vaults of students' minds. Students become passive recipients, absorbing information without question or critique. They are expected to store this knowledge, much like inert deposits, ready for withdrawal on command. This approach stifles creativity, curiosity, and the very essence of true learning. It reduces education to a transaction, a mechanical exchange devoid of genuine engagement. Freire argues that this banking model is not just ineffective, it's inherently oppressive. It creates a dangerous power dynamic, mirroring the very structures of social injustice it should challenge. The teacher, positioned as the sole possessor of knowledge, holds dominion over the students. This dynamic perpetuates a system where the voices of the marginalized are silenced, their experiences deemed irrelevant. The banking concept assumes a one-size-fits-all approach to education, ignoring the diverse needs and experiences of learners. It fails to recognize that knowledge is not a static entity to be possessed, but a vibrant process of discovery and co-creation. By limiting students to the role of passive recipients, We deny them the opportunity to become critical thinkers, active learners, and agents of their own destinies. The banking concept of education, with its emphasis on rote learning and unquestioning obedience, serves as a powerful tool for maintaining the status quo. It perpetuates existing power structures by conditioning students to accept information passively, without challenging its validity or relevance to their own lives. This creates a society of conformity, where individuals are discouraged from thinking critically about the world around them. Freire argues that this form of education is a subtle but insidious form of oppression. By limiting access to knowledge and controlling its dissemination, the powerful maintain their dominance over the marginalized. Students from disadvantaged backgrounds are particularly vulnerable to this system. They are often denied access to quality education and are instead relegated to schools that prioritize rote learning and discipline over critical thinking and creativity. This cycle of oppression is further reinforced by standardized testing, which often measures students' ability to memorize and regurgitate information rather than their capacity for critical thought and problem solving. This emphasis on standardized testing narrows the curriculum, limiting educational experiences and perpetuating inequalities. Students from privileged backgrounds often have access to resources that help them excel in this system, while those from marginalized communities are left behind. Freire challenges us to dismantle this oppressive system and replace it with an education that empowers all learners. He calls for an education that values critical thinking, creativity, and social responsibility. An education that recognizes the inherent dignity and worth of every student and equips them with the tools to challenge injustice and create a more just and equitable world. The banking concept of education, with its emphasis on control and conformity, has a dehumanizing effect on both students and teachers. Students are reduced to empty vessels, their unique experiences and perspectives deemed irrelevant to the learning process. This can lead to disengagement, apathy, and a sense of powerlessness. When students are not encouraged to think for themselves or to question the world around them, they are denied the opportunity to develop their full potential as human beings. Teachers, too, suffer under this system. Stripped of their agency and creativity, they become mere conduits for predetermined information. The joy of teaching, the passion for nurturing young minds, is replaced by the drudgery of delivering a scripted curriculum. This can lead to burnout, disillusionment, and a sense of disconnect from the true purpose of education. Freire challenges us to envision an education that affirms the humanity of both students and teachers. He calls for an education that is dialogical, participatory, and transformative. An education that recognizes the inherent dignity and worth of every individual and that empowers them to become active agents in their own learning and in the transformation of society. By breaking free from the banking concept, we can create an education that is truly liberating, one that fosters critical thinking, creativity, and a passion for social justice. An education that empowers individuals to challenge oppression, embrace diversity, and build a more just and equitable world for all. Imagine a classroom buzzing with energy, not from chaos, but from the thrill of discovery. This is the heart of problem-posing education, Paulo Freire's radical alternative to the stifling banking model. Freire envisioned a dynamic space where teachers and students become co-learners, embarking on a journey of exploration together. Gone are the rigid hierarchies, the one-sided lectures, the passive absorption of predetermined truths. In this vibrant learning environment, real-world problems take center stage. These are not abstract concepts confined to textbooks, but pressing issues that resonate with students' lives and communities. Poverty, inequality, environmental degradation, these become not just subjects to be studied, but challenges to be confronted, analyzed, and ultimately transformed. The teacher, no longer the sole possessor of knowledge, takes on the role of a facilitator, a guide on the side. They pose questions, encourage critical dialogue, and create a safe space for students to grapple with complex issues. The classroom transforms into a microcosm of the real world, a training ground for engaged citizenship and social action. Freire believed that true learning emerges from authentic engagement with real-world problems. When students are given the opportunity to grapple with issues that matter to them, they are more likely to be invested in the learning process. This approach not only deepens understanding, but also cultivates critical thinking skills, problem-solving abilities, and a sense of agency. Problem-posing education is not for the faint of heart. It demands active participation, intellectual curiosity, and a willingness to challenge assumptions. Freire believed that true learning is not about memorizing facts, but about developing the ability to think critically about the world, to question the status quo, and to envision alternatives. At the heart of this approach is the belief that knowledge is not a static entity to be passively received, but a dynamic process of inquiry and co-creation. Students are encouraged to ask questions, to challenge prevailing narratives, and to develop their own understanding of complex issues. This process of critical inquiry is essential for fostering a more just and equitable society. Freire argued that critical thinking is not merely an intellectual exercise, but a necessary tool for social transformation. When individuals are equipped with the ability to question, to analyze, and to challenge, they are less likely to accept injustice or to remain passive in the face of oppression. Critical thinking is the foundation of an engaged and empowered citizenry. Problem-posing education provides a framework for developing these essential skills. By encouraging students to grapple with real-world problems, to consider multiple perspectives, and to develop their own solutions, it fosters a spirit of critical inquiry that extends beyond the classroom and into all aspects of life. Section 3. Knowledge as a collaborative creation. In the realm of problem-posing education, knowledge becomes a shared endeavor, a collaborative creation between teachers and students. The traditional power dynamic is disrupted, replaced by a more egalitarian and dialogical approach. Freire believed that everyone has something valuable to contribute to the learning process, regardless of their background or social standing. This emphasis on dialogue is central to Freire's pedagogy. He saw dialogue as more than just an exchange of information. He viewed it as a transformative process that can challenge assumptions, foster empathy, and create a sense of shared purpose. In the context of the classroom, dialogue becomes a tool for collective inquiry, allowing students and teachers to learn from each other's experiences and perspectives. Through dialogue, students learn to articulate their ideas, to listen respectfully to others, and to engage in constructive debate. They discover that knowledge is not a fixed entity, but a fluid and evolving construct that is constantly being shaped and reshaped through interaction and collaboration. This process of collective inquiry is essential for fostering a more democratic and inclusive learning environment. Freire's vision of problem-posing education challenges us to rethink the very nature of knowledge and learning. It calls for a shift from a model of education that is based on hierarchy and control to one that is rooted in dialogue, collaboration, and a shared commitment to social justice. In this way, education becomes a powerful tool for liberation, empowering individuals and communities to create a more just and equitable world. Section 1. Awakening to reality. Imagine a seed buried beneath layers of earth. It lies dormant, unaware of its potential until a spark ignites within. This, in essence, is conscientização, the awakening of critical consciousness that Paulo Freire believed was essential for liberation. It's a process of profound self-reflection, of peeling back the layers of societal conditioning to see the world with fresh eyes. Freire argued that the oppressed often live in a state of submersion, unaware of the systemic forces that shape their lives. They may accept their suffering as inevitable, failing to recognize the structures of power that perpetuate inequality. Conscientização is about shattering this silence, about recognizing that the world is not a fixed reality, but a dynamic system that can be challenged and transformed. This awakening is not about simply becoming aware of injustice. It's about understanding its root causes, It's about identifying the ways in which power operates in our lives, often in subtle and insidious ways. It's about recognizing how our thoughts, beliefs, and even our identities have been shaped by systems that benefit some at the expense of others. Conscientization is a journey of self-discovery, a process of unearthing our true potential as agents of change. It's about recognizing that we are not passive bystanders in the face of injustice, but active participants in shaping the world around us. This awakening is not always comfortable. It can be a painful process of confronting uncomfortable truths. But it is through this process of critical reflection that we begin to see the possibility of a different future. Section 2, From Oppression to Transformation. Conscientization is not about dwelling in a state of perpetual critique. It's about channeling that awareness into action. Freire believed that critical consciousness is inextricably linked to the pursuit of social justice. It's about moving beyond simply recognizing oppression to actively challenging and dismantling the systems that perpetuate it. This process of transformation begins with ourselves. As we develop critical consciousness, we start to question our own biases, our own complicity in systems of oppression. We begin to unlearn the harmful narratives that we've internalized and to embrace a more inclusive and equitable worldview. This personal transformation is the foundation for collective action. As individuals develop critical consciousness, they become more likely to question injustice, to speak out against oppression, and to work together to create a more just and equitable society. Conscientization empowers individuals to become agents of change, to recognize their own power to challenge the status quo. Freire believed that true liberation requires a fundamental shift in power dynamics. Conscientization is a catalyst for this shift, empowering the oppressed to reclaim their voices, to assert their agency, and to demand a more just and equitable world. It's about moving beyond a state of resignation and apathy to one of hope and possibility. Conscientization is not a solitary pursuit. It flourishes in the context of community. It's about recognizing our interconnectedness, understanding that the struggle for liberation is a collective endeavor. Freire believed that true solidarity emerges from a shared commitment to social justice, from a recognition that we are all bound together in the fight against oppression. This sense of solidarity is essential for sustaining hope and for fueling collective action. When we come together in shared struggle, we create a powerful force for change. We support each other, we learn from each other, and we inspire each other to keep fighting for a better world. Freire emphasized the importance of dialogue in fostering solidarity. Through authentic dialogue, we bridge divides, challenge assumptions, and build understanding across differences. We learn to see the world through each other's eyes and to recognize our shared humanity. Conscientization, grounded in solidarity and fueled by dialogue, creates the conditions for meaningful social change. It empowers individuals to recognize their own agency, to connect with others in shared struggle, and to work together to create a world where all people are treated with dignity and respect. It is through this collective process of awakening and action that we move closer to a more just and equitable future. Imagine a world where voices rise not in anger but in understanding. This is the promise of dialogue, the cornerstone of Paulo Freire's vision for liberation. He saw dialogue not as mere conversation, but as a radical act, a force capable of dismantling oppressive structures and fostering genuine human connection. In Freire's view, dialogue is not about winning arguments or imposing one's views on others. It's about creating a space for authentic engagement, where individuals feel safe to express themselves freely and to listen deeply to the experiences of others. It's about recognizing that each person brings a unique perspective, shaped by their lived experiences and social location. Dialogue, in Freire's Pedagogy, is a process of mutual learning and growth. It's about challenging our own assumptions, expanding our understanding of the world, and building empathy for those whose experiences differ from our own. It's through this process of genuine engagement that we begin to dismantle the barriers that divide us and to create a more just and equitable society. Freire believed that true dialogue is rooted in respect, humility, and a willingness to listen with an open heart and mind. It's about recognizing that we all have something valuable to contribute to the conversation, even when our views differ. It's about approaching each other with a spirit of curiosity, seeking to understand rather than to judge. Dialogue has the power to break down the walls of prejudice and misunderstanding that often divide us. When we engage in authentic dialogue, we move beyond stereotypes and generalizations and begin to see each other as individuals with unique stories to tell. We start to recognize our shared humanity, the common ground that connects us despite our differences. In a world increasingly marked by polarization and division, dialogue is more crucial than ever. It's through dialogue that we can bridge the divides that separate us, whether those divides are based on race, class, gender, religion, or political ideology. When we sit down and listen to each other, truly listen, we open ourselves up to the possibility of transformation. Dialogue challenges us to step outside of our comfort zones, to confront our own biases, and to consider perspectives that may be different from our own. This can be an uncomfortable process, but it's through this discomfort that we grow and learn. It's through this process of challenging our own assumptions that we become more open-minded, more compassionate, and more committed to creating a more just and equitable world. Freire believed that dialogue is essential for building solidarity among the oppressed. When we share our stories, we realize that we are not alone in our struggles. We find strength in each other's experiences, and we begin to build a collective vision for a better future. Section 3. Cultivating authentic dialogue. Authentic dialogue does not happen by chance. It requires intentionality, skill, and a commitment to creating a space where everyone feels safe and respected. Freire outlined several key principles for cultivating authentic dialogue, principles that are just as relevant today as they were decades ago. First, dialogue requires humility. We must be willing to acknowledge that we don't have all the answers, that our perspectives are limited by our own experiences. We must be open to learning from others, even when it challenges our deeply held beliefs. This humility creates a space for genuine exchange, where everyone feels valued and respected. Second, dialogue requires empathy. We must make a conscious effort to understand the perspectives of others, even when those perspectives differ from our own. This means listening with an open heart, trying to see the world through the eyes of another. Empathy allows us to build bridges of understanding and to connect with each other on a deeper level. Third, dialogue requires a willingness to be vulnerable. We must be willing to share our own stories, our own struggles, and our own vulnerabilities. This vulnerability creates a space for trust and authenticity, allowing others to feel safe to do the same. Finally, dialogue requires a commitment to action. It's not enough to simply talk about the issues. We must be willing to take action to address them. Dialogue should inspire us to work together to create a more just and equitable world, to translate our words into deeds. Oppression, in its insidious nature, seeks to diminish, to control, to erase the very essence of what it means to be human. Like a venomous serpent, it coils around its victims, slowly squeezing the life out of their spirits, leaving behind hollow shells, stripped of their dignity and agency. Paulo Freire, in his seminal work, Pedagogy of the Oppressed, paints a stark portrait of this dehumanizing process, exposing the ways in which oppression robs individuals of their voice, their identity, and their very sense of self. The oppressor, often blinded by their own privilege and power, views the oppressed as objects, as mere instruments to serve their own ends. They are denied their humanity, reduced to statistics, to problems to be solved, to burdens to be managed. Their voices are silenced, their stories untold, their experiences deemed irrelevant. In the eyes of the oppressor, the oppressed cease to exist as fully formed human beings worthy of respect, dignity, or even recognition. This dehumanization is not merely an unfortunate byproduct of oppression. It is a deliberate tactic, a way of maintaining power and control. By stripping individuals of their humanity, the oppressor seeks to break their spirit, to make them more compliant, more accepting of their subjugated status. They are denied access to education, to healthcare, to economic opportunities, trapping them in a cycle of poverty and despair, reinforcing the belief that they are somehow less than, deserving of their lot in life. The oppressor's tools are many and varied. They range from the overt violence of physical force and imprisonment to the more subtle but equally insidious weapons of propaganda, manipulation, and cultural imperialism. Through these means, the oppressor seeks to control the narrative, to define reality in a way that justifies their own dominance and perpetuates the subjugation of the oppressed. Oppression's cruelty extends beyond external forces. It seeps into the very core of the oppressed, planting seeds of doubt, self-hatred, and despair. This internalized oppression, as Freire termed it, is perhaps the most insidious aspect of this dehumanizing process. It's the voice of the oppressor, echoing in the minds of the oppressed, convincing them that their suffering is justified, that they are somehow to blame for their own subjugation. Imagine a young child told repeatedly that they are stupid, worthless, incapable of achieving anything of value. Over time, these messages take root, shaping their self-perception, limiting their aspirations, and ultimately becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy. They internalize the oppressor's narrative, accepting their place at the bottom of the social hierarchy, believing that they are somehow less deserving of love, respect, or opportunity. This internalized oppression manifests in countless ways. It can lead to self-sabotage, to a fear of success, to a belief that one is not worthy of love or happiness. It can manifest as a deep-seated sense of shame, a feeling that one is inherently flawed, broken, beyond repair. This internalized oppression becomes a prison of the mind, a barrier to liberation that can be even more difficult to overcome than the external forces of oppression. Freire argued that overcoming internalized oppression is an essential step in the journey towards liberation. It's about recognizing the lies that we've been told, about challenging the negative self-perceptions that have been ingrained in us, about reclaiming our own narratives, our own voices, our own power. It's about looking in the mirror and seeing not the reflection of the oppressor's gaze, but the beauty, the strength, the resilience that resides within each and every one of us. Freire believed that true liberation requires more than just the dismantling of oppressive structures. It demands a radical transformation of both the oppressed and the oppressor. It's about reclaiming the humanity that has been stolen, about recognizing the inherent dignity and worth of all people regardless of their social location, their race, their gender, their sexual orientation, or any other arbitrary characteristic that has been used to justify their subjugation. This process of humanization begins with the oppressed, with their refusal to accept the dehumanizing labels that have been imposed upon them. It's about standing up, raising their voices and declaring to the world, I am worthy, I am human, I deserve to be treated with dignity and respect. But the responsibility for humanization does not rest solely with the oppressed. The oppressor too must confront their own biases, their own complicity in systems of oppression. They must be willing to listen to the voices of the marginalized, to acknowledge the pain and suffering that they have caused, and to work towards dismantling the structures that perpetuate inequality. This journey towards liberation is not easy. It is a constant struggle, a process of unlearning generations of prejudice and discrimination. It requires courage, compassion, and an unwavering commitment to justice. But it is a journey that we must take together if we ever hope to create a world where all people are free to live lives of dignity, equality, and joy. Paulo Freire's Pedagogy of the Oppressed stands as a timeless testament to the transformative power of education. It's a beacon of hope, illuminating a path towards a more just and equitable world. Freire's legacy is not merely a collection of theories, it's a call to action, urging us to become active participants in our own liberation and in the liberation of others. His work reminds us that true education is not about passive absorption of information, but about critical engagement, dialogue, and a commitment to social justice. It's about nurturing critical consciousness, empowering individuals to question, to challenge, and to transform oppressive structures. Freire's message resonates deeply in a world grappling with systemic inequalities, persistent poverty, and ongoing struggles for social justice. His emphasis on hope as an essential element of the struggle for liberation serves as a powerful antidote to cynicism and despair. Hope for Freire was not a naive belief in inevitable progress, but a conscious choice, a commitment to envisioning and fighting for a better future, even in the face of adversity. This message of hope is as relevant today as it was decades ago, reminding us that change is possible, that a more just and equitable world is within our reach. Pedagogy of the Oppressed is not a passive text to be read and shelved. It's a living document, a call to action that demands our engagement, our reflection, and our unwavering commitment to creating a world where all people are treated with dignity, respect, and love. Let us honor Freire's legacy by embracing his vision, by becoming agents of change, and by working tirelessly to build a world where education is truly a practice of freedom, a force for liberation, and a catalyst for a more just and equitable future.